Gentlemen, I have been dealing with the subject of offer and acceptance, but the courts have clearly held that there cannot be acceptance of a proposal which has not come to the knowledge of the offeree. So, therefore, what is being proposed has to be understood by the offeree. And as I said, it has to be what he perceives, how he takes it, what the offer was. And the acceptance also, in the same way, the acceptance must be communicated back to the offerer. Now, unless the acceptance is conveyed to the proposer, there cannot be an acceptance. Merely interdepartmental communication, as I have written here, proposing acceptance or mere resolution of acceptance by a company would not result into a contract. Let's say somebody has offered to sell you certain goods to your company, and your company directors then meet, pass a resolution, accept that offer, but that resolution is not conveyed back to the company which offered to sell the goods to you, and this resolution only is sitting in your books, then it is not acceptance. There have been cases where such resolutions by the employees were copied and in an unauthorized manner sent to the offerer. And the offerers tried to say that uh, the offeree has accepted it. No, it has to be, that was not held to be a valid acceptance. What has to be done is that the acceptance must be conveyed in the form in which the offerer has prescribed. So it has to be conveyed back to the offerer. It has to be conveyed in the form in which it has been prescribed. If he has said, please record your acceptance in writing and sign, then it has to be on a paper, on your, maybe if it is your letterhead, then maybe on your letterhead, and also it has to be signed. And if he has prescribed it should be stamped, then it has to be stamped. Further, there cannot be a cent without the knowledge of the offer. So as I have just now said, a vague offer is no offer. So offeree must understand what is the offer and reliance upon it, and there is no contract where acceptance is communicated not to the proposer, but to one's agent. Let's say I say to my employee, okay, we accept this proposal. And I even sign on the file and I give it to my employee, but it is not conveyed back to the offerer. Then it is no acceptance, friends. There is no assent. Now, friends, I am dealing with the aspect of promise, where I have said that upon acceptance, the proposal becomes a promise. A liability under contract cannot arise unless the contract has been concluded. However, rights may be conferred by a statute in respect of relationships falling short of being promises. For example, I have given the example here. Let's say somebody applies for a housing scheme of DDA in Delhi or any development authority outside. Then Customer Protection Act, Consumer Protection Act 1986 may help such an applicant. Now, again, friends, a promise defined is not the same thing as an agreement, because a contract is a promise or a set of promises which law will enforce. This clause read with E, H, and section 10 indicates that a promise is an agreement and is enforceable if it satisfies the conditions given in section 10. And I shall, in my next lecture, I shall define the scope of section 10 in its proper context. Friends, promisor and promisee, very simple. It is that I have said that the person making the proposal is called a promisor. The person accepting is called promisee. Person here, of course, includes corporates, government, and at least two persons are required to make the promise. The promisee is the person, sorry for the wrong typo here. The promisee is a person who is a party to the contract. It must be noted that heirs of a promisee or assignee of a promisee cannot claim to be the promisees. Now, what we are emphasizing here is that a promisee has certain distinct rights, but his heirs and assignees do not have the right. And they could not claim what the promisee could claim. Madras High Court, this is a Madras High Court judgment in Alluri, China, Vapanna. Friends, I will further like to say that this is entirely backed up by consideration as defined in section D. And when how we define the section says, when at the desire of the promisor, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing, the word is desire or request of the promisor from doing, to abstain from doing such act or abstinence or promise is called a consideration. Purpose of the consideration is to put some legal limits on enforceability of agreements and to establish which promises should be legally enforceable. A valuable consideration may be either a right, interest, profit, benefit, or even forbearance, loss, detriment. It's a very wide definition. Or responsibility given or suffered. Friends, in Midland Bank Trust Company versus Green, Appellate Court of England held only those promises which are supported by consideration are enforceable. Others are not binding, even if the promisor intends to bind himself by the promise. Among the limitations on the enforcement of promises, the requirement of consideration is described as the most fundamental. Now, friends, consideration is not an act of agreed price, as it is a performance, if it is already a performance agreed. Now, promissory estoppel is an exception to the consideration because a promise in future creates an estoppel. What is that? The principle behind the promissory estoppel is that if a promise is made in the expectation that it would be acted upon, and it was in fact acted upon, the party making the promise will not be allowed to back out of it. That, as I said, is an exception. Again, consideration is a notion of bargain. It is the price of a promise, a return, or a quid pro quo for a promise made. As I have quoted this Calcutta High Court judgment, Fazluddin Mandal versus Panchanand Das. And if there is, I was just saying this, if it is an act of the payment of agreed price, as the act of the payment of price is the performance of promise already agreed, Supreme Court has held consideration then would have the meaning as in section 2D of the Act and has approved it as being practically the same. I was just saying it to you that the doctrine of promissory estoppel is a departure or an exception from the doctrine of consideration. The principles of promissory estoppel have been enunciated by Honorable Supreme Court very, very clearly in the famous case of Motilal Padampant Sugar Mills Company versus State of UP in AIR 1979. Besides that, Supreme Court has also given the principles of promissory estoppel in the case of the state of Bihar versus that sugar mill. It's a case of an Afghan agency or something like that. The other cases which I will deal with it presently. Now, friends, we have said that the contracts may be of two classes, where we are saying the consideration is executed and others where it is executory. So there are two types of contracts, executed contracts and executory contracts. The distinction as in this case is being made by Supreme Court in Union of India versus Chaman Lal Luna in 1957 Supreme Court. A consideration which insists on performance is said to be executed. And where the consideration consists in promise, it is said to be executory. It should be very clear that where the consideration insisted is sorry, let me say this again. A consideration insisted is for performance, it is said to be executed. And where the consideration consists in promise, it is said to be executory. Again, it may be stated that the consideration is executed when an act is performed in return for promise, and the promise is unilateral. What is that? Some child has been lost, and somebody announces a reward offered to the person who finds such a person, or an article has been lost and there is a reward announced and hands it over. This is the example of in this case. A promise to do something in future is a legal consideration provided it involves legal obligation. The detriment suffered by here by the promisee is the essence of consideration. Let me say this again. There is a promise to do something in future, and that's a legal consideration. The detriment suffered by the promisee is the essence of such a consideration. A compromise of a claim arising out of illegal contract is insufficient as a consideration unless the compromise arises out of a dispute of fact as to whether the contract is in fact illegal. Yes, somebody says the contract is legal, somebody says it's illegal. If such a compromise arises, then we have to see whether that dispute arises out of whether the contract is in fact illegal or legal. But the consideration must be real, a meritorious or gratuitous consideration, such as love and affection or obedience and submission by way of respect, is not good or valuable consideration. And therefore, for somebody to say, nor an expectation of spiritual and moral benefit. So somebody to say, you do this for me and I will be grateful, or I will give you a marriage certificate, or that you will have my affection, or it is for my affection you do this for me, or I will be always very obedient to you. All these are not good consideration, nor is some person saying, oh, you will be morally benefited or you will be spiritually elevated. No such things. That's the case of Patna High Court Devi Saran Koiri versus Nandlal Chobe. Friends, promise should not be obviously impossible. Courts do not generally concern themselves with adequacy of consideration, nor do they audit the bargain made by the parties. Also, third parties cannot challenge the existence or adequacy of consideration. The performance of what one is already bound to do, either by general law or specific obligation, is not a good consideration. So, friends, it is actually the courts see it. They generally don't know how much I may do something for 10 rupees. Or I might give legal advice for 10 rupees, or I might give legal advice for 10,000 rupees. The courts do not audit this. They do not see the adequacy of consideration. And no third parties cannot challenge the existence or adequacy of the consideration. Nobody can say, why did you charge only 10 rupees for giving the legal advice to Salve? The performance of what one was already bound to do, for example, if there was already an existing obligation to do something, then that's not a consideration. Again, friends, that a contract cannot confer rights or impose obligations arising under it on any person except the parties to it. No one but the parties to the contract can be entitled under it or bound by it. This principle is known as the doctrine of privity. However, contracting parties may confer rights or benefits upon a third party, but the third party on whom such right is conferred can neither sue nor can he rely on defenses based on the contract. Also, the parties to a contract cannot impose liabilities on third parties. But friends, third party for whose benefit a contract is made may sue on it, but the party making the contract may sue only for specific performance for the benefit of the third party. Let's say if I am a party to the contract and I have made it or bestowed some some benefit on my employee, then if I want to enforce it, I'll have to enforce it by way of specific performance. But my employee could sue on the contract because there is something for his benefit. If also, and the plaintiff cannot recover more than the amount mentioned in the contract. Friends, I will mention one more case here. Krishnalal Sadhu versus Pramila Baladevi, where Chief Justice Rankin observed that there is nothing in Section 2 to encourage the idea that the contracts can be enforced by a person who is not a party to the contract. But this notion is rigidly excluded by definition of promise and promisee. And that is why I said that the Law Commission in its 87th report in 1958 recommended incorporation of Section 37A to enable a third party to enforce a contract in his own name if the contract conferred a benefit on him, but subject to defenses available to contracting parties. Friends, I will conclude by saying the rules of privity and consideration reflect separate issues of policy, and the rule of privity relates to who can enforce the contract, and that of consideration is about the types of promises which can be enforced. Thank you, friends. We shall continue from here.